James here. We're going to talk to you about Chicago Fire fan reactions to the latest Chicago Fire news and goings on in MLS, including stuff about Shaqiri. We'll also get into more of the Arlo White Saudi Arabia discussion, along with some World Cup 2022 and ethics discussion. Maybe involves some Kant, the Bernard Williams, some Nietzsche. We'll see where it goes. As always, we like to keep it fun here, but we can certainly go to some very interesting places and thought-provoking places. How redundant is that? But beyond that, let's get into it, chat. And also, we got two big movie reviews for you from SPITTINGFIRE. I know I don't often do that, but I'm gonna start doing that more because we have two awesome movies that, two huge, big-time movies that just came out. And I wanted to talk about because I saw them and I had a few thoughts about both of them. That right now, alright, chat. Oh. You ever been talking to a brick wall? That brick wall doesn't talk back. For minutes, seconds, hours, days, milliseconds, years, decades. Of course the wall doesn't talk back. But one thing you do expect to talk back to is chat. But when you realize that you're not on camera, your voice is sounding like it's in the distance, probably to the casual viewer, you are not engaged. And that's what I found myself doing just a minute ago, guys. Let's go. Let's snap back into it. Let's lock and load. It's Wednesday night. We're going to be talking Chicago Fire fan reactions to the latest news, including Shaqiri. And we're going to be getting into Arlo White Saudi Arabia discussion, maybe even a little World Cup 2022 ethical discussion, going into areas that are interesting and thought-provoking. We of course, we like to keep it light and fun here on SPITTINGFIRE, and we'll do our best to have to give this topic some respect, and also take a look at it and with an eye and examine it and see what's going on there. And we also got two big movie reviews for you guys. I saw two big blockbuster movies, and I want to let you know if I thought they were good or bad. And I'll let you know that here on SPITTINGFIRE. Greatly appreciate you guys kicking that like button, subscribing to SPITTINGFIRE, clicking that join button if you really want to get involved in the action and unlock the sickest emojis on YouTube. We'll be able to swap in sick ones every event that we do and just have a blast. Oh, shit. All right, guys, people are dropping in. Let's get into it. All right, chat, and of course, as always, 5th annual Fire for Food drive has just been absolutely killing it. We met our goal before the season began, but you know what? Why can't we go a little bit harder? Just because. I mean, after all, this is Chicago. This is the city of broad shoulders. Let's get it in. So hopefully you can donate. $1 goes a long way. It can even create up to 3 meals. It's quite incredible work what the Chicago Food Depository is able to do for our neighborhoods in our community in Chicago, involving food hunger and food insecurity. Thankfully, thank you guys for taking a look at that, taking the time to appreciate that. Link is in the description of the video. Moving on to business. John Bush on a recent podcast, well, just a quick shout out to that before we get on to it. Outsports, at Outsports. This is from John Dorn saying, I'm gay, I'm masculine, I work in sports, I'm proud of that. Longtime pro soccer executive John Dorn, here's his coming out journey. You can check out that article there on Outsports. Dago Camacho saying, Chacon seems like the real deal. I watched him play in recent international tournament, but where they barely lost the final against France, and he was great. Really hope that CF97 make a big push to get him. Victor, who do you bench though? I mean, we need help in depth regardless, but I don't know who to spend. I don't know if we want to spend that much on a bench player. Playing with Fire saying, I'm not saying that Chicago Fire should or even could, but trade Gaston and Shaq for Vila. Do it. You want immediate impact on or off the field? Just do it. Just go get Vila.
Chat, do you agree with that? Commenters, people watching live or after the fact, do you agree? Do you think it's a worthwhile trade to send Gaston and Shaq for Vila? I mean, if it's all funny money and all paper money and everything's, you know, all things are equal, and this is FIFA, I don't know if I make that move, because in FIFA, the money is not important. But what is important in reality is money. What's important in reality is support. What's important in reality is fan fervor, talk, desire to see your team. You get more desire to go see the Chicago Fire if should Carlos Vela be out there. Little Vela. That get you titillated there, Fire fan or MLS fan, seeing Vila out in Chicago instead of Gaston Jimenez and Shaqiri. I mean, Shaqiri doesn't get a lot of people's. Shaqiri is not going to get a lot of soccer fans' dicks hard, if you know what I mean. And I just said it, so I think you do. It just doesn't excite a lot of Chicago, a lot of big-time soccer fans. They know Shaqiri, they know the name, they respect the name, but it's not a name that they're like, oh, wow, sign me up for that ticket. I gotta go see him. That's like, oh, I'm going to go see Shaqiri. You want to go? I was like, yeah, maybe. Maybe. Who else they got? They got anybody like Messi? They got Lewandowski. They got Arjen Robben. They got Mueller. You got Neymar? No, we don't have any of those guys. Well, then who? Oh, Fabian Herbers? Who? Wait, Gaston Jimenez? Who? These soccer fans wouldn't know these people. Of course, you soccer fan, you MLS fan, us MLS fans here, we know those players, but I'm just talking casual. And we need to recruit more casuals to increase the interest of the league, help make this deal pay off, this TV deal pay off, especially. And well, one move makes that deal pay off, and we talked about in that podcast, and it's Leo Messi. Leo Messi makes the Apple TV deal happen, makes other people want to come to MLS and go play with Messi. Then maybe you get a little Dani Alves. Well, Dani Alves is too old, but you know what I mean. Just you start getting a couple other people that want to be like, oh yeah, I'll go over to MLS. You know, it started with the Frank Lampard. I mean, that continued with the Frank Lampards and the Andrea Pirlos. Those guys were contemporaries. They all came over to MLS to see how they could vibe and fare against each other. Imagine like super captains with like Zlatan. I mean, not Zlatan anymore, but Zlatan, Wayne Rooney. I want more of these super captains with Bastian Schweinsteiger. I want more of these super captain situations. Also, I want the restrictions for MLS to be taken away. They have to remove the DP slots. They have to remove all of the tam-gam funny money business and just simply move to some sort of salary cap situation where you can now go get the top talent, maybe even two guys that are like top echelon. I mean, look at what Columbus Crew were able to do. They went and got a $10-11 million striker out of the Premier League. Of course, this Premier League team was just recently relegated, and that also played a factor, but they were able to go get a quality forward from a quality league with a high pedigree, and he's a young player too. He's 21 years old, so it's going to be very excited to see what goes on with Chucho Rodriguez over in Columbus and that yellow team. But let us know if you guys agree with this trade. I don't know if that's a lot of talent to give up for Vila, but Vila, man, I think he wins you more ball games than Gaston and Shaqiri combined. Absolutely, Vila wins you more ball games than Gaston and Shaqiri combined, I think. Do you agree, chat? Fabian Herbers, he of the podcast, makes the bench for Team of the Week. Former Fire draft pick Jackson Reagan, who wasn't offered a contract by last summer, joined the Sounders, is also a starter. Wow. Take a look at that. Reagan. Where is this guy? Jackson Reagan. Wasn't offered a contract. Great work, Garrick Heights. Penciled out another one in the loss column. I was being facetious there when I said win, but then I realized that it's an L. Big L. We wouldn't get Mueller probably, and we might have a better shot at keeping one, if anything. Mueller. Oh, Chris Mueller. If we had gotten Madran or Luca, we might not have gotten Chris Mueller. I'd rather have Chris Mueller than either one of those guys. Can someone ask Ezra today if Shaqiri is physically in the USA? If not, why not? I think the fact that he's in contract for the Fire, he should be getting rehab here. I don't really care where he's getting rehab as long as it's the best in the world. And if it's, wherever it's in the best in the world, get it done, get back here. That's what matters to me. Brian Sandolau, though, says Ezra's availability is tomorrow. That'll be tomorrow, the day after this is filmed. But Shaqiri will be asked about. Patrick McCartney chiming in and saying, I imagine it'll be the very first question. One has to wonder what the Fire would look like if we kept Xherdan and Luka on the current squad. Who cares? I don't need those two bums. Dago saying, looking at Xherdan Shaqiri injury history doesn't give me any confidence that we'll get him anytime soon. Boo hoo hoo hoo. A lot of muscle injuries. Why can't we have nice things? Eyebrow raise. Hashtag CF97. I mean, look at these list of injuries. Hamstring injury, calf injury, muscle injury, calf injury, thigh muscle, calf injury, pubitis, which is just like a very irritated groin muscles around the area of around your groin. Muscular problem, muscle injury, calf injury. I mean, look at these. It's plaguing his career. No surprise though. We saw that when you were getting them. Jake Tomzak writing, examining the Fire and Arlo White situation. Now this was an article that I was reading through. There hasn't been much Chicago Fire soccer played, and the team just returned to league playing following international break on an off week. They scraped a 1-0 win against DC United on Saturday, which is a decent result, though they played only against the only other team that's been just as bad as them. The more significant stories over the last few weeks have been the off the field. And I want to shed some light on one of those in this column, the Arlo White situation. This story needs to be covered every day until the Chicago Fire finally part ways with the announcer and club ambassador. Sounds like there's some sort of vendetta. I don't know, and there's some sort of now. It seems like Arlo White is now a target of Jake Tomzak and potentially some other Fire writers. I know Brian Sandolau is not pleased with it. I know a lot of other people in Chicago Fire community are not pleased, and we aren't here pleased with what we've seen. But all the same, this is an interesting development that this author is calling that this should be covered every day until the Chicago Fire finally part ways with the announcer and the club ambassador. Do you think that is true, Chicago Fire fans? Let me know in the comments below if you think that we should, as a Chicago Fire YouTuber, start covering this story every day until the Chicago Fire finally part ways with the announcer. Please let us know in the comments below if you agree with that if you agree with that notion, or what you think about that, because that's what I'm reading here. And I want to hear what you guys have to think in our Chicago Fire fan community. This story needs to be covered every day until the Chicago Fire finally part ways with the announcer and club ambassador. You guys agree with that? I'm curious to hear in the comments below if we here, Spitting Fire, should start covering this every day, putting out a 1 to 2, 5, 10, 12-minute video every day about this until something happens. I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on whether or not you think that is a viable option, because that is what is being suggested here by this author. And we want to know what you think here in our Fire fan community, in our MLS soccer and big broader community. For those that don't know, Arlo White is the former voice of the Premier League on NBC, and his role for the Chicago Fire is that he calls a handful of summer games, along with being one of the hosts of the club's podcast called the Intercontinental Football Show. On Monday, June 6th, it was announced that Arlo White had signed a contract to become the lead announcer for the new and extremely controversial LIV Golf Tour. LIV is a mechanism of sports washing for the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, and a ploy to better the reputation of the Saudi Arabian royal family amongst the public perception. It's hard to imagine a golf tournament covering up the human rights violations committed by the Saudi Arabian government, which include, in March of this year, a mass execution of 81 people that was conducted by the Saudi government, which eclipsed the 62 reported executions committed by them in 2021, and at the time took this year's total to 92. We're not sure. I don't have a lot more information about what was the reason those mass executions were conducted. It is a country that routinely murders journalists, including the high-profile case of Jamal Khashoggi a few years back. Saudi Arabia continues to be light years behind when it comes to freedom of expression, religion, women's rights, gay rights, migrant rights, and a whole slew of other human rights. The country does not have an established penal code, and laws are written broadly, allowing government prosecutors to convict anyone they want of whatever they want. Sounds like freedom issues over there. The ongoing airstrikes in Yemen are often referred to as the greatest humanitarian crisis in the world at the moment. Details on each of these violations and others can be found here. There's links in the description for this, of course. There are clearly more examples known to us and likely many others that we have no idea about. I mean, you can certainly speculate there, but I think we can, if we can speculate there, we also have to speculate about the other ones that we have no idea about for everybody. But so it's not difficult to understand why a Chicago Fire employee also working for the people behind these atrocious acts is problematic. See, that is problematic. He is his ongoing employment is even more confusing given the club's ongoing attempts to be more socially aware and create a community that is a safe space for all. Well, it's interesting that he mentions that it's a club wants to be more socially aware. I don't know how socially aware they were when they purchased property that was set aside by the Chicago Public Housing people in order for other purposes, and then they sold to this business. It will create jobs, but I mean, are they truly socially aware, or are they just a big business looking to grow and increase their footprint and solidify their footprint and improve their financial gain and the flow of money into their coffers? The only response from the club has been a comment by a spokesperson that the club was aware of Arlo's choice prior to the announcement and that he will remain in the club's pants. I wanted to wait a little bit more before saying anything about this because I was trying to see if the Fire would do the right thing. But as time goes on, it becomes harder to believe in any sort of social good initiative taken up by the Fire. Everything they have done up until this point gets diminished and is quickly starting to seem performative. I mean, I just illustrated to you that it is absolutely performative. It's a business. So our question is, so if we follow this to our nth degree as Fire fans, if these people follow if you follow your moral prerogatives to the nth degree, then I don't know if you can actually watch the Chicago Fire anymore until they rid themselves of Arlo White, and that you have to make a stand as an individual if that is that morally important to you, that you feel the need to write articles, to talk about it, to tweet about it. I think that you guys need to do more in order to let the Fire know how much this bothers you, because I think a lot of these people are still consuming Fire product. What's up, James? We got Cucho. We got Cucho. We talked about Cucho on the podcast a little bit earlier, just a few minutes ago. So excited for Cucho. Xherdan partnership. Cucho's first game as part of the crew is going to be July 9th. Versus the Chicago Fire. Wow, man, that's gonna be crazy. That's gonna be a barn burner. He's gonna premiere against the Chicago Fire team. Chicago Fire fans are gonna see, whoa, there's an attack. And also it's gonna be coached by Caleb Porter, of course, much embattled. A lot of that yellow team fans wanting Caleb Porter out of the club just mere weeks ago, but with this recent development of Cucho Hernandez coming in to play with Xherdan, maybe things change quickly. Maybe sentiment changes quickly, but we'll get back to what we were talking about here by what I think, with Chicago Fire fans' reactions to the Arlo White situation. And so I think more fans, if they are this perturbed by it, they need to act more than with tweets. They need to actively boycott the situation, the club, until they make amends. Or in addition to that, write these articles and tell other people to write articles. Like, that's why I'm reaching out to you guys in the community right now. I asked you guys a question. Do you guys think that we here at Spitting Fire should be making videos every day until Arlo White loses his job? To me, that sounds like a vendetta. I don't like the way that's worded. I wish there was a better way to word that, because this sounds like harassment. So I would watch out for that. This story needs to be covered every day until the Chicago Fire finally part ways with it. It sounds like borderline harassment, so I would like to be careful watch it, but still, that's why I ask you in the Fire community how you guys feel about that, because hey, guess what? It's a fucking America. You can feel what you want to feel and say it. Let's fucking go. feel what you want to feel and say it. Don't worry about it. We'll get into it and we'll have a nice discussion here in Spitting Fire, because you know what? Fuck all the nonsense and the craziness out there. If they want to get crazy, they can. We ain't gonna. We'll just take your sails out of their wind. Move on, and we could have awesome, cool discussions over here on Spitting Fire. So, getting back to this larger discussion, we don't know how in fair advance the club knew about the deal, but the fact that they did does not help the optics of the situation. If they knew in advance, it gave them extra time to make the right decision and cut ties with Arlo. It's interesting that they say that the right decision is to cut ties with Arlo because he made a deal with the Saudi Public Investment Fund, which is nefarious benefactors, as we come to learn as we read through articles here on Spitting Fire. But as we know, that hasn't happened yet. Regardless of what is, or in our case, isn't happening on the field, some things are bigger than the sport. There's an ongoing trend of rich people with sketchy records and closets full of skeletons dipping their billions into sports. The first high-profile case was Roman Abramovich's acquisition of Chelsea in the early 2000s. We all know what happened with that. See, this is like... This little statement I don't really agree with too much. This first off, Roman, yeah, I mean, there's some questionable stuff there, and we all know what happened with that. Yeah, he was forced to sell his club after his country attacked Ukraine, and he was, kind of looked at as some sort of figurehead of his country because that's where he made up a lot of his money. So he lost his club. So that's kind of what happened there. Later on in the decade, Manchester City got taken over by Sheikh Mansour and became a richer club than has ever been imagined up until that point. It was not followed too long later, I'm just reading this, by the Qatari takeover of Paris Saint-Germain. Most recently, the takeover of the Newcastle by a group financed by Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, which is funding the LIV Tour, is part of the consortium that has made Newcastle the richest club in the world. So yeah, he's pointing out that a lot of these clubs have been bought by this club. So they aren't the first. So what I'm learning from this person, from Tom Sheck, the author of this, is that more people have gotten into business, into bed with the Saudi Investment Public Fund, including many big-time soccer leagues, of course, which work with Arlo White. So Arlo White works with big soccer leagues like the EPL. And one of the EPL teams and the EPL league agreed to sell the club to the Saudi Investment Public Fund. So because the EPL has agreed to take that money, so too Arlo White, as a connection, as being involved in the field, he has seen the need, or he's seen the ability to hitch his wagon to that decision. So it's an interesting thought process. Just got all my July streams scheduled. Ooh, very nice, man. Tip about that, by the way, I would keep schedule those all for unlisted, and then the week in advance, that's when you public them. Because having them out there for the whole month is actually super annoying for viewers, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't really attract the viewers. But if you put it out the week of, so that you just unlist them, and then the week of those, boom, make them public, they'll appear on everybody's YouTube, and they'll be more timely. And because they're more timely, you'll get more people going to check them out. If they knew in advance, though, so I mean, I'm reading what the argument here, and I'm curious to hear what your guys' arguments and your thoughts are. But please make them. I want to read them because we're trying to make sense of the situation. Now, I can understand why Arlo feels that it's a fair situation for him to be able to make deals with these nefarious benefactors, because people that employ him, the EPL or other leagues potentially too that could employ him, have made business deals with this fund. So kind of makes it a little harder for him to say no, or at least to make some sort of stand. But all the same, he could. He absolutely could. He didn't have to take this deal. His contract was up with EPL, though. His contract was up with Air, so he was looking for the next deal. Was this the easiest decision, and should he have maybe done something else? What do you think, Fire fans? It's curious to say, but it's also a curious thing to say for other people when we don't necessarily know their situation or their objective reality. All this, and we'll get into more of that discussion. Regardless of what is, or in our case, isn't happening on the field, some things are bigger than the sport. Okay, I already read that. I believe it is important for Chicago Fire to be on the right side of history with this. It is something that goes all the way to the top, and if Joe Mansueto wants to maintain his reputation in good standing with Chicago Fire supporters, how many should here's the thing, maintain his reputation in good standing with Chicago Fire supporters. What if it's only 600 supporters that really care and the other 5,000, 10,000 don't care? Or what if it's only 1,000? What if it's only 10% that really care? 1,000 of the 16,000 or 18,000 that showed up. How many of those 17,000 fans that showed up on Saturday to go see DC United really care about this issue? I'll tell you, not a single one of them, because they all showed up. They all showed up with their dollars. They all gave their dollars to support the decision for Chicago Fire. And I want you all to really consider that, guys. I mean, if you're putting your money where your mouth is, that means you are either boycotting, you're standing against this, you're not standing with the decision, or you are condoning the decision by watching it. And now we'll get into more of that, because think about what this means for Qatar 2022. What does this implicate about fans for 2022? Am I really, as a Chicago Fire fan, now have the blood of Saudi Arabia on my hands because I watched Chicago Fire and Arlo White happens to be announcer? I don't think so. I don't think so, fans, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below, because we're about to get into it and talk about it here. The author makes the claim, the argument that is imperative that he makes the decision to let Arlo White go. Also saying that he had the chance to watch the England and Scotland game recently with Arlo in last summer's European Championships. The author chatted throughout the 90 minutes about all things soccer, and it was such an enjoyable conversation, which maybe that speaks to Arlo's character. He's a good person, he's good to hang out with and talk soccer. But he also made this seemingly morally reprehensible decision. So now the author contends that he is knowledgeable in soccer, and his work over at NBC covering the Premier League has set standards for the industry. Neither of these is good enough. Neither of these are good enough, by the way, author. Neither of these are good enough. I don't know if he's 17 or 18, but it feels like neither of these are good enough reasons that improve the editing. And otherwise, well-articulated article in many areas, a few flawed areas which could use a bit more boning up that I asked questions about. But interesting article here from Tom Shack. Yeah, I don't know. This guy's also tweeted some mean things at me. He strikes me as very young, very immature, but people learn, people grow, and that's part of life, and that's a good thing. Especially when you get more education, you learn more things about the world and reality. Neither of these are good enough reasons to keep Arlo around, considering the overshadowing facts laid out here. A couple facts. Yeah, so he did business with people in the football world he did business with people who also have done business with other people in the footballing world. There's the facts. But those people have been involved with some questionable things in the past, and this is a case of sports washing. Absolutely, it is sports washing. But also, we have to also ask ourselves, as global humans, and that share this globe, at what point do we start extending the olive branch to all people of the earth? And is sports that olive branch in order to bring all of humanity together and bring us all up into another plane of existence, so to speak? You know what I mean, chat? Where we can all be more communal and be more focused on togetherness, one world, one love type mentality, versus countries, division, and nationalhood and all that kind of stuff. Of course, national pride's, there's moments where it's great, but there's also moments where it's like, whoa, cool it, right? It all comes back to moderation. I mean, I studied politics, guys. I studied history, and it's all about power dynamics. Just who's got the power, who's got the natural resources, who's got the ability to use or mine or get those natural resources out or control them via force. It's all about power. That, I think, is does not yet conclude our moral responsibility of the moral responsibility of firms for or against. This is from knowledge.nc.edu. When business behaves badly, who is morally responsible, the firm or the individual? Now, I'm thinking about this in terms of Saudi Arabia being the business and the money that's involved, the money of that's going to go to like Arlo White or to the EPL or Paris Saint-Germain, right? The post-financial crisis world is becoming a more business-critical one. There are unprecedented levels of scrutiny of large corporations and their actions of those who fall of the face of the law, if that will face a more severe backlash than before. This is breathing new life into the debate surrounding corporate moral responsibility and the extent to which business organizations can be correctly said to have moral responsibilities and obligations. In philosophical terms, the question is posed as one of the moral agency. As one of the moral agency of organizations. Nonetheless, in practice, we speak readily of BP being responsible for the Gulf of Mexico oil spill. It is considered morally blameworthy and actions are taken against the company. Under Anglo-American law, at least, a corporation such as BP is considered a legal person, but is it a moral person? The article asks. It is often argued that only individual humans can be morally responsible, and that the actions of a firm are those of its individual members. Corporate moral agency raises the possibility that a corporation can be considered morally responsible and accountable for an action, but no individual person. We could get further into that, but I think we're going to move on. There's of course, other companies that have scandals, Equifax, Enron, Google, United Airlines, that have had major scandals and were able to recover. Is Chicago Fire going to be included with that because of this Arlo White debacle? Is it that severe? I'm not so sure. Bad reputation. America's top 20 most hated companies. The Weinstein Company, pretty obvious. United Airlines. The video of a passenger being forcibly removed from a seat on an overbooked United Airlines went viral last year. And this was when? 2020? 2018. Jesus. So I'm sure they've recovered since then because I had no idea why United Airlines is so... I'm like, wait, United... Oh, yeah, see, I mean, just short memory. Us in the public. Facebook, of course, yeah. CenturyLink, don't know. Telecom company. Monsanto, yeah, boo, right? Comcast, boo, even though they got our internet. Yeah. Uber, questionable, right? Sears Holdings, don't know. Trump Organization, whoa. Orange Man. Wells Fargo, they're a bank, they do something with money. Cigna, they're a thing. Spirit Airlines, oh, they're so cheap and they're always got us gnarly fees. Vice Media, oh, they think things. How dare they? And maybe I don't know what else they do. Honestly, I don't know what they do. I thought there's some sort of... I can't tell you what I really think about them. Sprint, ooh, yeah, you guys would not see it coming. Sprint, I really don't think you'd see it coming. Sprint, yeah, they did phones. Remember when they did walkie-talkies on their phones? Oh, they just stopped doing that. Damn it. Right in the L column. Foxconn Technology. There's something, I don't know, it looks like FIFA's playing in the background. So yeah, something with FIFA, fuck them. Electronic Arts, fuck them. Ooh, University of Phoenix. Oh, is it a scam? I don't know. You tell me. NFL? Oh, but they employ Deshaun Watson and a slew of other questionable characters with questionable integrity and questionable moral ethics. Boo. Fox Entertainment Group. Boo. Equifax. Boo. Yeah, right. Boot all of them, right? Is that how it works? Public ethics. Should we boycott the 2022 World Cup, chat? Written by Jake Vojtovich back in May of 2021. Nobody really knows how many workers in Qatar have died wrongful deaths in constructing the infrastructure to host the 2022 World Cup. But people have died for our entertainment. How should we, as fans and players, react to this? Before getting into my question, however, I have to make 2 preliminary points and kick that like button because it's free and helps spread the video and gets us more people talking about this, wondering about this, and getting into the comments and talking about these things that matter, because that's what matters, guys. Let's talk about the things that matter. That's just Martin Luther King advice right there, right? You know, talk about the things that matter. Firstly, I say wrongful deaths because people die all the time, and people sometimes die on construction sites. Not all of these are wrongful. Accidents happen, and that is a risk of any major construction project. But if, as in Qatar, working conditions are poor, if workers must work in 50-degree heat, 50 degrees Celsius, heat of the midday sun, if workers must live in awful labor camps, then we are in the realm of wrongful deaths. And it is pretty obvious why these deaths and the exploitation that goes alongside are morally wrongful. Workers aren't given the protection that they deserve. They're treated as fungible things, not people, and they're sacrificed in pursuit of profit and glory. It makes me think about some of these people who... Secondly, you might see statistics that say 6,500 workers died, but that is both over and under inclusive. It includes all deaths of migrant workers, whether or not they were wrongful. They could have died from heart disease or a car crash, but this number is inclusive too. Qatar does not keep detailed records on worker deaths or the cause of worker deaths, so estimates are based on statistics provided by the home countries of these migrant workers. This number only includes statistics from India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. Yet several other countries send large numbers of workers to Qatar. Sorry, everybody who's been raging at me saying Qatar. It's Qatar. Further, there's the fact that some of this infrastructure would have been constructed regardless of the World Cup, so it isn't clear how many deaths are actually linked to the World Cup. Despite the uncertainty over numbers, it is nonetheless clear that too many people have died to bring us this World Cup, and these deaths are a moral horror. But my aim is not to probe the moral horror itself, but to try and explain why this might affect fans and players. How FIFA has wronged us. Suggest why a boycott might be worthwhile, and end with a reflection on a broader problem. Sports washing. Of course, this is going to be relevant to all of us Chicago Fire fans who are faced with the dilemma of how do we support the Chicago Fire when they're supporting something that we might not necessarily support. FIFA have wronged us before because by watching or playing in the World Cup, we fans and players are implicated in these deaths. But the way we fans will be implicated and the way that players will be implicated is very indirect. We aren't the ones who awarded the World Cup to Qatar, nor are we the ones who pursue policies that mean so many people died in pursuit of this goal. It's not like we will kill people by watching. Rather, the worry is that we somehow condone this. We will watch, players will play, and try to win, despite what happened. The deaths were, to us, worth it for there to be a World Cup for us to enjoy, because we're watching. And that's what makes the fact that FIFA awarded Qatar the World Cup so galling. We knew 5 years ago that people were dying for this World Cup, yet FIFA would not take it away from Qatar. FIFA's actions haven't just implicated FIFA in Qatar's wrongdoing, they have implicated us, the viewers, in wrongdoing. For a normal World Cup, though there are exceptions, Italy in 1934 and even Russia in 2018 that might trouble us, we could watch or play without even worrying that we were somehow condoning evil. But it also leaves fans in a slightly hopeless position. They could boycott it, but what's the point in that if the competition will go ahead anyway? Well, see, I'm just author, or my note aside, this author's asking if they could boycott it, but what's the point? I got a little, I couldn't let that one go. The reason for boycott, it doesn't matter if it's going to go on anyway. You boycott to take away those dollars, to take away the support, to take away the focus, and move the focus onto the issue. All right, sorry about that. Back to the article. Players are in a different situation to the fans. Without players, the tournament cannot go ahead. They, either as individuals or as a larger group, could boycott the tournament. Nobody is obligated to play football. Nobody. At the level of entire teams, Norway may well boycott the World Cup. It doesn't look like they will because they didn't make it. It's clear already that some Norwegian clubs and many fans are opposed to competing in the World Cup. Because of the way that the fans have an influence over the running of the clubs and the running of the football federation, there is a small but realistic chance of that boycott. But given the fact that Norway have several very strong young players, and one being Erling Haaland, now on his way to Manchester City, this would be no empty statement. Norway are by no means favorites, and they've already been eliminated, so we'll move on. There are arguments against a player's boycott. Football associations will lose out on income, could be expelled from future competitions, and allegedly a boycott could have dire consequences for the migrant workers involved. Not that things could get much worse for the dead. Perhaps the attention already drawn to Qatari working conditions will make things safer in the future. Further, many of the harms involved here have happened already. People have died in constructing this infrastructure, and given that construction will likely slow, fewer people will die in the future. And does it render, well, and it should be but does it render these deaths for nothing? If there is no World Cup, these people seem to die for no reason at all. See, that's a little. Let us know what you guys think about this article as we go through it here, and feel free to comment below. Many of these seem to me to be weak and self-serving justifications for indulging in the World Cup, especially when compared to the idea that by watching or playing in it, we somehow condone the evil that happened. I want to finish by focusing on a broader problem in football. The considerations I have paid attention to have concerned Qatar hosting the World Cup 2022. There's a reason for it. It is worth thinking about the phenomenon that sits behind why Qatar would want to host the World Cup. Sports washing. Thinking about this might give us further reason to protest or boycott this World Cup. Sports washing is when vicious regimes use sports to prop up their image by investing in clubs and getting major events and championships in their country. States or prominent individuals, often tied to the state, purchase clubs or provide sponsorship or host a World Cup in this instance, and in doing so endear themselves to fans who are more likely to ignore or accept their human rights abuses, what we were talking about earlier. By hosting the World Cup, Qatar can wash away some of its human rights abuses. Of course, their aim isn't to get rid of these abuses, rather that it is to make us ignore these abuses while growing to like the abusers. We are often happy to overlook the moral failings of those we like, especially when the moral wrongdoers benefit us in other ways. See Newcastle takeover sports washing. Plain and simple, says amnesty.org, I think. If the World Cup doesn't happen, or if it is drastically less prominent because half of the team's boycott, doesn't seem likely that this happen, or millions of fans ignore it, doesn't seem likely. Qatar's efforts to sports wash just fail, which doesn't seem likely. And this sends a message. If your aim is to endear yourself to fans so that they overlook your human rights abuses, then you had better make sure that your human rights abuses aren't so egregious that they lead to you losing out on, say, hosting the competition or owning the club that lets you sports wash, and thus losing the opportunity to endear yourself to the fans. More fundamentally, if we fans refuse to be lured in by those who try to seduce us, we neutered their efforts to launder their reputations. This means that there's more of a case for a fan boycott. It's not that it will help those who have died already, but that it will thwart future, well, it won't thwart, but it could potentially thwart future attempts to justify bad regimes. There is a self-interested reason to hope for that. We will no longer be implicated in their evils. But there is also a humanitarian consideration, a hope that a boycott could help thwart these human rights abuses in the first place. If you can't whitewash your reputation for egregious human rights abuses, you might just have to start treating people better in order to become involved in prestigious sporting events and have that rub off on your reputation. The considerations I've offered in favor of boycotting the World Cup are not exactly precise or irrefutable. Certainly, some things depend on the factual details. Just how egregious are the working conditions? Just how many people died? Then there is a moral issue. We'd be somehow condoning this suffering, but I haven't said to what extent we'd be doing this or specified exactly why that would be bad. Part of the reason why I haven't done that is because I do not know. There is no doubting that these workers' deaths were horrifying and unnecessary. But really, how important is our role here as viewers, as fans? I think it is worth thinking about the World Cup. I think that our role is huge as fans. And if you got everybody to turn away and not watch, that would be monumental. Chat, if you want to make that happen, I think you got to be the spark and let us know in the comments below. I think it is worth thinking about the World Cup and thinking about the extent to which we will be implicated in wrongdoing by watching it, but I don't have the answers, nor do I. I'll have done something if I've just managed to persuade you that we need to think much more about our own role here. Yeah, we definitely have to think about it, and I appreciated the article for that. No doubt there is an element of self-interest to my wavering on whether to ignore the World Cup. As Barry Glendenning put it in The Guardian, writing about playing rather than watching, following our moral compass and railing against obvious discrimination is all very well until it threatens to derail the possibility of traveling to and winning the World Cup. So too with watching it. Researching and writing this piece affected me more than I expected. I deeply want England to win the World Cup, but I'm not sure I want them to win this World Cup because I'm not even sure I want them to play. And I can't shake a nagging sense that I shouldn't watch the World Cup. But I also think I probably will watch it. And I'm concerned that if I do watch the World Cup, it's because I'll be ignoring these moral wrongs for my own selfish entertainment. Interesting article, chat. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Ooh, no, we got one more. The absolute conception of reality. In his book Descartes, The Project of Pure Inquiry, 1978, Bernard Williams gave a compelling description of the ideal of objectivity in science, which he called the absolute conception of reality. Imagine this, an absolute conception of reality, something absolute. According to this conception, different human perspectives on and representations of the world are the product of interaction between human beings as constituents of the world, and the world itself as an independently existing reality. Humans cannot apprehend the world except by some form of perception or representation, yet they can recognize and to some extent identify and try to compensate for the distortions or limitations that their own point of view and the relation to the rest of reality introduced. Jesus, reads like a True Marty tweet. Guys, the aim of objectivity in science is by this method to approach as closely as possible to the absolute conception, a conception of what there is anyway, independent of the human point of view. Independent of the human point of view. It's not connected. Historical self-consciousness about the contingent elements in this process is compatible with the idea of a single truth towards which humans are trying to make progress, though. Williams was cognizant of the doubts that exist regarding whether this ideal is intelligible, let alone attainable, in light of the fact that human thinking alone must start from some particular historical moment and must use that contingent biological faculties and cultural tools that happen to be on hand. But whatever may be the difficulties in pursuing this ideal, he believed that it makes sense as an ambition. If there is a way things are anyway, then it makes sense to want to know what that way, that anyway, is, and to explain the nature of human perception in terms of it. Continuing, morality and the limits of objectivity of burnout. This is all relevant to the conversation we just had, of course, chat. Some philosophers, and if you want to, go grab a cup of tea and let's ruminate. Some philosophers in the tradition of David Hume, 1711 to 1776, have denied that there can be objective truth in ethics on the ground that this would have to mean, very implausibly, that moral propositions are true because they represent moral entities or structures that are part of the furniture of the world. Moral realities with which humans have some sort of causal interaction, as they do with physical objects of scientific knowledge. Williams was also doubtful of objectivity in ethics, but his criticism does not depend on this false analogy with science and is actually more interesting than it sounds. Moral judgments, according to Williams, are about what people should do and how they should live. They do not at all purport to represent how things are in the outside world. So, if there is any objectivity in moral judgments, it would have to be sought in a different analogy with scientific objectivity. Objective truth in ethics would have to consist of not in ethical entities or properties added to the absolute conception of external world, but in the objective validity of the reasoning that supports certain practical rather than descriptive judgments about what people should do and how they should live. The analogy with scientific objectivity would reside in the fact that their way to arrive at such objective and universal valid truth would be to detect and correct for the biases and distortions introduced in one's practical and judgment by contingencies of one's personal or parochial perspective. Do you understand what that means, chat? Do I need it to read it again? Because I think I will. Basically, we all have internal biases that almost make it impossible for us to truly detect the universal most valid truth, and those impact our judgment and distort our perception and reality of the truth. The more distortions however, the more of those types of distortions, those internal biases that you could account for, that you could correct, the closer you can get to the truth. But it is just this aim, central to the idea of moral objectivity, that Williams thinks is fundamentally misguided. Williams finds something bizarre about the theoretical ambition of discovering a standard for practical judgment that escapes the perspective peculiarities of the individual point of view. This applies to any ethical theory with a strong basis in impartiality or with the claim to universal validity. You get that? You follow their chat? Williams' basic point is that in a practical domain, the ambition of transcending one's own point of view is absurd. How can you think as another person? How can you truly imagine what Arlo White's thoughts and reality is? How could we truly portend to even achieve a thought that's minutely close to what the sense that is truly his reality? Because we have no sense of the grand span and scheme of his life, and we have not been there for every moment. We've not been there for every mystical moment or mystery or real or things he doesn't worry about but new. That's what this is talking about. So this is quite interesting, I think. Once again, I'm going to repeat that. Williams' basic point of view is that in the practical domain here, the ambition of transcending one's own point of view is absurd. It's impossible. If taken seriously, it is likely, but however, despite that, we humans have the ability to empathize. And we try to put ourselves in other people's shoes. We do our best to, but we never can really truly fill the whole shoe. We're lucky if we could fill a toe in the shoe that is when we are worried about other people like that. If taken seriously, it is likely to be profoundly self-deceived in its application. To Williams, the ambition is akin to that of the person who tries to eliminate from his life all traces of the fact that it is his life, hiding the truth from oneself. Williams developed this objection through his general view that practical reasons must be internal rather than external. That is, reasons for action must derive from motives that a person already has. They cannot create new motives by themselves, through the force of reason alone. He also defended a limited form of ethical relativism. He believed that there can be an ethical truth. It is local and historically contingent and based on reasons deriving from people's actual motives and practices, which are not timeless or universal. So think about that. Ethical truth is local. So how can we see ethical truth as Americans is the same ethical truth as for Saudi Arabians, as it is for Chinese, as it is for Russians, as it is for British, as it is for Irish? Just consider that thought. He believed that while there can be an ethical truth, it is local. Consequently, moral judgments cannot be applied to cultures too far removed in time and character from the culture in which they originate. How can a culture judge its older culture if it's too far removed in time? If it's too far removed in character from what it used to be? and make moral judgments about that. So that speaks to the cancel culture issues that have promulgated this recently here on social media, I think. These arguments appear in Ethics and the Limits of Philosophy, a critique of utilitarianism. In Utilitarianism, For and Against, and some of the essays reprinted, blah, 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 blah. The debate provoked by Williams' claim that impersonal moral standards undermine the integrity of personal projects and personal relations, which gives life its very meaning, was an important part of the moral and political philosophy of the later 20th century. Do you follow that, folks? The debate provoked by Bernard Williams' claim that impersonal moral standards undermine the integrity of personal projects and personal relations, which gives life its very meaning, which is an important part of the moral and political philosophy of the later 20th century. Even philosophers who did not accept Williams' conclusions were in most cases led to recognize the importance of accommodating the personal point of view as a factor in moral theory. Williams also raised and explored the deep question of whether a person's moral status is immune to luck or purely contingent circumstances. As Kant argued, for Kant, the moral status of an individual depends only on the quality of his will. Williams invented the concept of moral luck and offered strong reasons to think that people are morally vulnerable to contingencies beyond their control. A conception he found exemplified in Greek tragedy. Oedipus, for example, is not relieved of guilt for killing his father and marrying his mother by the fact that he did not know at the time what he was doing. That he was doing. Williams' remarkable philosophical, literary, historical work, Shame and Necessity, presented these ideas in a rich study of Greek ethical and thought. Williams came to the conclusion that instead of following the model of natural science, the project of understanding human nature should rely on history, which provides some distance from the perspective of the present without leaving the fullness of the human perspective behind. During the later part of his career, this viewpoint coincided with his admiration for Nietzsche, whose genealogical method was an example of historical exploration. In Williams' last book, Truth and Truthfulness, he applied these ideas to the importance of truth in the theoretical and practical spheres, as well as political and personal relations. Interesting little article there, chat. I did a little Google search for Arlo White recent. Here's the most recent. I mean, it's just the most recent hit was from Chicago Fire, putting out a little video. Chicago Fire revealing a video of the schedule. And it's Arlo White just reading the schedule out.
Kickoff.
So there's Arlo. So he's still involved in the club as far as we can see. And those are the questions being asked. Chat, let us know how you feel about the situation. We'd like to hear it. We'd like to hear from you guys. And before we go, we're going to go into a real quick 1 minute movie review. Jurassic World Dominion. I am a huge Jurassic Park fan. Love the books. I love reading the books, Jurassic Park and The Lost World by Michael Crichton. Both fantastic books. I love them so much. I love Jurassic Park much more. This movie felt awesome. I loved it. I enjoyed it from start to finish. It wasn't a perfect movie. It wasn't a great movie. It wasn't an A+ Jurassic Park movie, but this was it's a B monster movie is what a lot of people say, and it was that, but it was awesome. It was excellent. It had a lot of cool little Easter eggs for a lot of Jurassic Park fans, whether you read the book or loved the movies. So I thought it brought a lot to the table, and it really satisfied me as a Jurassic World fan and Jurassic Park fan. Moving on to Top Gun Maverick. This movie was an altogether different experience. Where Jurassic Park obviously had its flaws, had its issues, had stumbling blocks. I can think of one thing on Top Gun Maverick that I did not like. I loved the ride from start to finish. Well, back and real quick aside, Jurassic World Dominion, I loved the ride from start to finish. It felt huge. Jurassic World finally felt, no longer was we in Jurassic Park, it was truly a Jurassic World. Dinosaurs all over. So absolutely loved the thrill ride of that roller coaster feel. And the same feeling, similar feeling with Top Gun Maverick, but even better ride, better narrative, stronger story, stronger acting in parts. I mean, the Smith character was really bad in this. Everybody else put in strong performances, including the old cast, the old Jurassic Park cast, Ethan, so Malcolm, Ellie, Grant. They were all amazing. As long as the new characters, they were all amazing. The great acting, except for the the Will Smith's son. That was really weird. It was some weird acting in that particular scene, I thought. Everything else was fantastic. Loved the dinosaurs, loved all that. Back to Top Gun Maverick. Oh my God, love the planes. Love Tom Cruise. Love Jennifer Connelly. Oh yeah, it was made for us 80s, 90s kids that love that Top Gun, that love that awesome classic old summer blockbuster movie. I feel like these both movies knocked it out of the park. Top Gun even more so. Top Gun, I'm giving a 9.5. Jurassic Park, I could give an 8 because I really truly loved it. I loved what Colin Trevorrow did to do. I really feel like he improved upon the last 2 installments of Jurassic World and really tied a nice neat bow that brings all of the movies of Jurassic World together. And so did Top Gun Maverick. It tied a nice little bow between that and Top Gun. There were nice little connections, nice little nods, homages back to Top Gun. It was cool to see some of the old characters that you want to remember, and even though some were missing. But that said, great little story, tight little story, fun little action. I really like what they did to the Tom Cruise character and how strong they made him. They didn't emasculate him. They kept him a strong character. He's just doing different things, and so it was a real interesting movie choice compared against other movie choices we've seen in this day and age recently. I know things that I don't like. I mean, I haven't been liking this Obi-Wan series lately. It's been hard to watch. Watching the Obi-Wan series has made me realize how much I love Star Wars and how much I'm not liking this current ride with Obi-Wan, even though I love Darth Vader. I love Obi-Wan. I love the characters. I love seeing them. I just love seeing them again, even though it's not the greatest. The acting is poor in spots. The writing is really poor. The narrative story, it just doesn't make sense. It's almost insulting to viewers with any amount of intellect. It feels like it's made for 8-year-olds. Meanwhile, Top Gun Maverick felt like it was a movie made for us born in the 80s and the 90s and the 70s, who love that style of movie, that summer blockbuster, that great thrill of winning. Just winning, going out and dominating, and I loved it. I loved the sense that Top Gun gave me. So go check it out. I highly suggest you guys go check out those 2 films. I think you'll enjoy them. Jurassic World Dominion and Top Gun Maverick gets Chicago Fire seal of approval. I very much enjoyed both films. And if you guys want to see more film reviews from me in the future, maybe I'll talk about a couple other things that I have seen recently, or get into more of that talk, as well as I talk more in my podcast about this type of stuff. Thanks for joining us here on Spitting Fire. I will catch you on the next one. Of course, this is our Wednesday usual stream. I just want to get a nice little fire one out for you. I think we're gonna be doing a little gaming later on, so stay tuned for that. Greatly appreciate you guys checking out the stream. Kick that like button. We will catch you on the next one, and fire it up, footballers. Yeah. We'll see you guys. Hello? Just a second. Hold on. Just a second, chat. Oh, it's you! Of course. Thanks for joining us here on Spitting Fire. Greatly appreciate you guys watching the show. Make sure you guys comment below. Feel free to comment. It's America. Let's go. It's YouTube. It's the Wild West. Let's have some fun. Let's banter. Have a blast. Let's go. And we'll catch you guys in the comments. Love to read your comments. Kick that like button. Send us a super thanks if you're feeling generous, because we're talking about some risky topics here that I don't think other people feels necessarily safe to talk about, but I feel like we can help talk about. I feel like we can talk about this because I listen to what Martin Luther King said, Dr. Martin Luther King, and when we stop talking about the things that matter, that's when problems get worse. That's when life gets bad. We need to talk about the things that matter. We need to talk about these things. We can't shy away from some of these topics. Sometimes you gotta have a little uncomfortable topic and an uncomfortable discussion to move forward and get back to that place of positivity so we can all get to a better place, right? High tide raises all ships, so to speak. Let's get there together, chat. Greatly appreciate you guys joining us here. Kick that like button, comment below. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Share this with others so we can get the conversation going. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you guys for joining us. I'll see you guys later.